Good morning. Today we're gonna replace the fuel pump on a BMW R1200R model 2009. So let's get cracking. First thing to do is to remove the two screws, the four screws. There are four of them. Remove this cover here. You can see them here. So we're going to start by removing this cover. Next thing to do is to disconnect the overflow pipes. They're located here. There is a clip here to undo. So it's just a question of disconnecting them at this level here. And that's them removed, as you can see here. Right. These are two rubber pipes. Right, next step is to remove this bolt here. There's only one. It's located on the left hand side. So it's just a question of removing it. But before we get onto that, let's remove the seat. So the seat can be removed easily by turning the key. We'll take the ignition key and get it popped off. One thing, one comment when removing this screw here, mind to support with it by hand at the back here, so you don't get the entire weight of the tank onto the screw. Ideally, and I should have mentioned this at the beginning, the tank should be emptied before you start removing, or you don't have to empty all of it. You just have to get some weight off, and you'll see the way we position the tank to remove the fuel pump does not affect. If you don't have much fuel in there, it doesn't have much impact. I tried checking the fuel level. I think the odometer indicates I have 50 kilometers left. So the tank is more or less empty. I tried sucking some fuel out the tank. The level is pretty low, so I'm comfortable removing the tank this empty. For you guys, I recommend to empty whatever you have as much as you can, and then we're gonna tilt the fuel tank later in a way so that fuel doesn't come spewing out. Alright, as you can see, I took out the bolt. The tank has been lifted up slightly just to show where the fuel lines are, and you can see one here already, and the second is down here. So it's just a press and release type of mechanism, but before we do that, we need to insert a rag here to avoid fuel going all over the place. There's always a bit of fuel to set. Okay. Alright, that's them disconnected. One good practice, if you're not sure about what you're doing, or this is the first time for you doing this job, is to use some masking tape to mark which fuel line goes to which feeder line. So I know I did that first time round. So it's a good practice to mark what you disconnected or where you disconnected it from in order to find your way back when you come to reassembly. Okay, now everything is marked up nicely. We're gonna move on to the electrical lines. For this we need something of the same height, ideally, as the fuel tank. So I'm going to use a stool to rest the tank while I pry the connectors off, and you have to be very gentle with the connectors so you don't break anything or damage anything. Just want to show you one thing, how the tank is mounted at the front of the bike. We'll see there are two mounting points here. There's one here, so the grommet part is fixed to the tank, it's fixed to the bike, while there is this space, metal spacer that slides onto it. So you find these are located, one on the left, one on the right here. Okay, so this spacer here is metallic, attached to the tank, welded to the tank, and so in order to lift the tank off you need to slide it backwards to free it from these grommets here, a rubber I believe. So be careful, be very gentle when you're sliding it back and lifting it off. So you need to have something to rest the tank on as you're doing this, and I'm using this stool here. So the back of the tank is gonna go onto the stool, giving me plenty of room to work on the electrics. Okay, this is the most comfortable setup I managed to find. As you can see, one side is resting on the stool, the other on the air filter box. So this allows enough room to go and disconnect everything from the fuel pump at fuel pump level and free up the tank. Okay, so you have two connectors here that you need to disconnect, and you need to be very gentle when doing so. Okay, tank is off. If you emptied the fuel to the correct level, as you can see, you can set the tank on its side, on its left hand side. Make sure you have a clean surface, something like a piece of cardboard would do nicely, so not to scratch the tank. So if you lay on its side, the fuel level will be resting around here. I don't know how much you would have in your tank, but mine is pretty much empty, and this will allow you to work comfortably without fuel spewing all over the place, as I said earlier. And so here is your fuel pump setup, right? I like, as much as possible before starting to dismantle stuff, to take pictures. This way, you know, I know exactly how things were before I started dismantling, and when it comes to putting everything back together, everything looks nice as it was before, and there is no room for mistakes if you do that. Okay, let's get cracking. Okay, you may have noticed this mark here. I always put a mark on stuff. This is good practice before dismantling. This is a retainer screw ring that secures the fuel pump in place, or the fuel pump assembly anyhow. So mark it, make sure that when you put things back together you know where you should be at when you tighten things. There's a fuel filter here, so it's retained by two zip ties, very easy to disassemble. So you remove the two zip ties, you tap this retainer ring gently with a hammer and maybe a flat screwdriver, but be careful not to go mad on it so you don't damage anything. and everything, the whole thing comes loose. Basically the whole assembly will lift off, so I'll show you in a minute. Now, one thing to watch out for before undoing these, remember everything is pressurized still, so I don't think it's pressurized as much as when the bike is running, but there is still some pressure in the lines because these are spring loaded, so there is fuel in there still present, and the minute you start unscrewing things, you depressurize and fuel is going to go all over the place. So my recommendation is to find a way to unpressurize the lines. I haven't worked it out yet. I didn't want to tamper too much with these two couplings. I didn't want to damage them, so what I tend to do is put plenty of rags, make sure that also I protect myself, you know, wear some eye goggles or something, so that if fuel comes spewing out, you don't get any on your eyes or your clothes. So be careful, safety is a must. Okay, this is the part which will be a bit messy, so plenty of rags. Well, of course, up later. Nice pair of pink washing up gloves, and you will see what I mean. Alright, not bad. Not much pressure in the tank, so that was good. It's because I opened it before starting the job. That's pretty good. Disconnect the other side. Right. Okay, next step is to start removing the retaining ring. Again, gently as you do this. So I'm gonna get on with the job, come back in a minute. Okay, so retaining ring is now off, ready to come out. Before that, you know, prepare something to welcome the fuel pump into, something clean. I'm gonna give a wee clean to this container. This will give me plenty of room to inspect it, see what's happening, because what I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video, the reason why I'm removing the fuel pump is it's making a whistling noise. So this is an indicator that either the strainer or the filter strainer has something wrong with it, it's poorly installed, or there is a problem with the internal pipe. I'm going to show you how this fuel pump is made, but I need to inspect it, see what's wrong and why is it whistling when I start the engine. So back in a minute. Right, before you go anywhere, as you lift the assembly up, this connector needs to come off. So you see there is a little retainer here. You need to get it off. That's it. That's the fuel pump. It's out. As you can see, the strainer seems to be a little polluted, so we're gonna strip that apart and see what is causing the whistling noise. Basically, the fuel pump is here. You can see this is an aftermarket fuel pump. It's not the original. And yeah, let's see what's causing it to whistle. Cheers, see you in a bit.